So Janak from ICF, thank you for taking the time to be with us today and thank you for being at Blockchain Expo. First of all, just tell me a little bit about your career to date and your current role within ICF.
Okay, so I have a master's in computer science and I started out as a developer. I was a code monkey for a few years, and then I realized my real strength was on the business side of IT and how to bridge the gap between technology and business. And that's when I joined ICF, which is a consulting firm, and my primary role is to identify how can next-gen technologies like blockchain, AI can be implemented to improve business operations and improve mission outcomes for the government.
So you were speaking at Blockchain Expo earlier today. Tell us what you were talking about and what message you gave the audience at the end of the discussion.
Right, so currently my role within ICF is I lead the analytics and emerging technologies line of business, and as a part of that, I have to find opportunities of how to take blockchain, adopt it, implement it for the federal space. So that's what the primary focus of my talk is. What's the blueprint? What's the strategic approach via which you can take blockchain, implement it in government, which is typically a very risk-averse organization. So figure out a way where you are disrupting while minimizing any risk to the mission outcomes.
So you mentioned the blueprint there, and looking at it in a wider perspective of government IT technology adoption, what role does blockchain have to play in that potentially?
Yeah, so blockchain as the technology provides a lot of benefits, and there's so many different use cases within the government, because government typically is a lot of legal documents being passed back and forth between different parts of the government, as well as with the vendors like ICF and the government. And there's no transparency, so that's where blockchain comes in. It can really help, and those are the use cases that I demonstrated in my presentation, where taking an existing business process, which is not very transparent, you bring in blockchain, you bring in additional technologies like automation and artificial intelligence and make the whole process more transparent, more intelligent, and that's why you transform the way government currently does business.
Would you say therefore that blockchain is put alongside these other technologies such as artificial intelligence that you mentioned, or is it something that underpins all of these emerging technologies and drives them forward?
So it's the whole ecosystem. All these things should go hand in hand. So one important thing is the legacy systems within government are not going anywhere. So they were designed for a reason, and it does do its job. So in terms of bringing in blockchain, bringing in AI, bringing in automation, it has to work along with those legacy systems. So it has to integrate with them rather than replace them. So that's where you look at an architect, that's why doing that blueprint, that architecture at a high level is important before you go on with the implementation journey.
You mentioned in your presentation the 5-step strategic approach. The second step, the integration with enterprise architecture, that's always quite a difficult one, especially with various stakeholders at play. What advice did you give to the attendees in terms of putting that across as a proposal? Right,
so that's where government is very hierarchical and is very process-oriented. So I suggest you start with setting that executive vision. You get the buy-in at the highest levels in the organization. So once you have those executives on board, is how I would start. Now, integrating with the existing system, the enterprise architecture is a blueprint by which they bring in new technologies. So the good thing with the government is there's a process by which they evaluate new technology, what risks will it cost, what will it have, and then also they have what they call like an investment review board, which analyzes any risk to their existing operations. So that's the way you would want to bring in new technologies, and there's a governance framework in place in most government organizations which guides the implementation plan for a technology like blockchain.
And just tell me a little bit more about the various stakeholders that we mentioned that are in place that have to be placated in various ways and have to be approved and so on and so forth. How difficult is that? How much of a roadblock is that?
Yeah, so typically in any government organization, they're organized by the different mission outcomes. So there'll be a program office who are the subject matter experts, and there's your IT organization. So the program side, they're more focused on how can they continue to do what they do and serve their citizens or beneficiaries. They're not so much concerned about IT. Versus the IT stakeholders are more focused as are we using the latest and greatest technologies. So there is a rift sometimes between them, and that's where we come in and saying, well, how can we do this such that we're using all the IT best practices while also making sure that there is making a change, moving the needle on the mission outcome side. So getting them to the table, agreeing to them, because at the end of the day, we all want to make sure that government can do more with less, with budget deficits and scarce resources. They have to find a way to do things with less resources. And bring in additional technologies, demonstrate value, and demonstrate early and often. That's what I talk about in my presentation is, prototyping is important. Don't just talk about it, build something, show them like a before and an after. So that's where it's really important, and that has really worked well in getting all the stakeholders on board.
And looking at it in terms of either a technological or a cultural change, how much, you've mentioned the culture a little bit there, but how important is that going forward? How much would you say is it say 50% tech, 50% culture, or what sort of equation is it?
Yeah, so that's a great question because I always say, and I say in my presentations, that technology is the easy part here. It is that change management, which is tricky because any disruptive technology like blockchain will have significant impacts to governments, people, process, and technology. So in terms of split, it really varies at what level of maturity a current organization is, but change management plays a very important role. So you bring that, and don't bring that change management should never be an afterthought. It should always be thought about as part of the strategic planning. You're making sure your stakeholders as well as your end users. So the whole mentality of if you build it, they will come doesn't really work. So as part of rolling out a new technology, you should also be constantly soliciting feedback from your existing users because user experience is a key component. So that should also be a part of change management.